Okay, I think we should be live everywhere. So welcome everybody to this special webinar. I am Tarek Merchant, I'm your host. I'm also the CEO and founder of IMRecruitable. And we're going to be talking about coronavirus and what that means for your recruitment process. I have a lot of people tuned in tonight. It's definitely a popular topic. It's something that everybody is worried about. So I hope to bring you guys a lot of clarity and stuff on this. So first and foremost, before we get started, I want to make sure that we just take care of a couple things. Number one is I want everybody to know that I hope everyone's safe and that they're healthy and that they're taking care of themselves. This is such a difficult time and challenging for everyone. People have lost jobs and everything. So let's just keep all that in mind and realize that at the end of the day, if we're healthy, if we're alive, then we can tackle any problem. So I just want to get started with that. I'm going to go over to my notes here and we're going to do it. So I want to tell you guys about myself first, and then after I tell you guys a little bit about myself. Not everybody in this live webinar knows me. I know some of you do. Some of you guys are members on IMRecruitable, and then a bunch of you guys are new to this. So let me give a quick background about myself, and then you guys will get to know me, what I'm about, what the company's about, what we're trying to do to help you guys. And then moving forward, we're going to talk about the actual problems that are happening in terms of the NCAA, the recruiting, what they've come up with, and then what that means for your recruitment process. So let me just mention one other thing. We do have our texting platform, so if you do have questions, please text those over. You guys should have the number there. It's 305-928-5615. You can text that over to my team. If you have questions, we'll try to get through as many as we can. So we're going to spend the first 30 minutes or so for me presenting to you guys, and then the last 30 minutes answering questions. I want to try to get as many questions and answers as possible. I think it brings the most value to you guys, and that's what I'm looking to do for you tonight. Okay. So here we go. So about myself. I was born and raised in Canada. I'm a first-generation immigrant. My dad was born in India, my mom in South Africa, and then they came over to Canada, and I was born and raised there. I played all sports growing up. Ice hockey was the first sport that I started doing. I started skating when I was 3. I played baseball, soccer, squash, tennis, golf, pretty much every sport. A lot of my friends would call me an Olympian because I just love to do all kinds of sports. And I continued that for a very, very long time. I ended up specializing in tennis, and that was the sport that I took to play in college. And my college career was amazing. At the end of the day, I had the best time ever. I also experienced a lot. I went from from being my dream since like the age of 12 to go to the US and play college sports. And then it went to not being my dream and going through the recruitment process and realizing maybe I want to stay back home and go to school in Canada, to then, as soon as I graduated high school, to play and taking that opportunity and never looking back. I played Division II, I played Division I, I transferred, I had different coaches, I faced injuries, I never finished my senior year. I had a medical injury there and was never cleared. I also had teammates come and going. I had scholarship offers, increase, decrease, tried to get taken away from me. So really, I've experienced quite a bit on my own personally. And then as I was in college, I was obviously dealing with all my friends and teammates and stuff. And I had a lot of athletes that were my friends in different sports. So I would hear a lot about it. I started to come up with the idea of IMRecruitable and helping student athletes when I was in school. I was doing my master's. After I finished my master's, I worked for the Orlando Magic for a bit, then I taught tennis for a bit. And during that whole time, I was realizing that there was a need for honest advice from recruiters and people who are helping kids get into college and place their sport, because everyone, including myself, was facing a lot of challenges. And a lot of my friends and teammates that came after me were facing those challenges. And so when I went into the business world and I saw how the recruiting system works, I figured there's got to be a much better way. There's too many sharks in the business. They're looking out for themselves. And I am no BS. My company is no BS. We say it how it is. I'm open about everything. I have no filter in that regard. And I think that that gives you guys the best perspective moving forward. I have no specific ties to any schools or any coaches. There is no money coming in or out in that way. It's just trying to help athletes find the best fit for themselves. So, in 2009, I started the recruiting process, helping athletes. I built IMRecruitable. Today, IMRecruitable is one of the largest recruiting networks in the entire world. We have thousands of athletes that use our platform in multiple sports. We have thousands, tens of thousands of college coaches that are on our platform as well. And they're connecting with student athletes. I basically built LinkedIn for student athletes and college coaches. And it's an opportunity for everybody to get educated, to connect, and have a great, opportunity to earn a scholarship, get recruited, do whatever you need to do. And we're there to support you guys through education and through our experiences. We are one of the few NCAA trusted recruiting and scouting services. You have to go through a process there. And that allows basketball and football coaches to use our platform because they have specific rules. And, a few years ago, several years ago now, I created collegiate exposure camps. And I founded that with a group of college coaches, which is for tennis players right now, and I hope to expand to other sports one day, but it is an opportunity for them to train and be on a college campus and work hands-on with college coaches, get inspired, get to meet them. And that's a really new experience, really, that we found a way to allow coaches to be with players and build those relationships. And that has been an amazing opportunity. We run those in the summer and in the wintertime in California. And everybody benefits greatly. They develop their game and so on. So through that, I've had a lot of experience. I not only hire college coaches to work my camps, I not only help college coaches find the best recruits and through our network and have that. I'm speaking to college coaches every single day. That is what I do for a living. I am working on hand in hand with them and the athletes and their families and my team. And because of that, I've positioned myself to be in a unique situation where I know so much insider information and I have so many contacts and connections that I can really pass on that value and knowledge to everybody else. And that's what I'm looking to do today. I've spent the last few weeks talking to many coaches from different sports, getting their takes on this whole coronavirus and how it's halted for the coaches that are doing spring sports. Their whole entire season has really turned their lives upside down, like it has for all of us, and trying to understand better what they're doing with their universities. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off by explaining what actually happened. Okay, and there's a few things to keep in mind. I'm going to talk as general as possible. I'm going to get into some specifics about the spring sports, but I'm also going to make you guys realize that you're not going to understand everything, the ins and outs about this. You're not going to understand every little detail, and nor should you. What you guys need to understand is the summary and the high level things, so that you can make educated choices on what's going to happen and understand at a higher level what's happening. Not trying to figure out every little detail, because the biggest mistake is most people, when they go through recruiting, is they try to learn what is a big business and a big confusing sort of animal, and they get caught up in that and they end up circling and confusing themselves more. But in reality, if you understand the concept, you're going to be much better, you're going to be in a much better situation. So take this with a grain of salt as well, and also understand that things are changing every single day with the coronavirus updates and what everybody's doing. Every business is like that. The NCAA is one of those businesses that is also trying to make updates today. So first thing we have here is the NCAA. What they did was they extended their recruiting deadline period for all NCAA divisions till May 31st. And so what the question is what is that dead period, right? We all want to know. So they have banned in-person recruiting. So that means that college coaches cannot go to any events if they were even going on. They cannot host any official or unofficial visits. They cannot have any personal contact with any players face to face. So they are limited, and athletes are also limited. So this is something that they recently just extended. Originally it was till April 15th, I believe, and now it's been extended to the 31st, and it could get extended much, much further, but we're just going day by day, week by week. The other thing that's happened is the National Letter of Intent. They call that the NLI. Those have also been halted at this moment. So any effective March 16th, we haven't been able to sign any NLIs, but verbal commitments are still good to go. So that's happened through until April 15th, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Now, the next thing that we have to look at is the NCAA's extension of the current student athletes that are in spring sports and giving them that extra year of eligibility. This is pretty much the questions that I've been getting the most and the most confusion that people have. So here's what really happened. So anybody who's doing a spring sport, that includes, tennis, golf, any sport that's in spring, okay, that was taking place January onwards, their seasons were cut short. And so what the NCAA said is they said, okay, anybody who's currently in universities and colleges, they're going to get another year of eligibility granted by the NCAA. But every school has a choice to decide if they want to grant that to somebody or not, if they want to offer that extra year. So what this does is it actually causes institutional level decisions. And when those institutions decide, they have the option to increase the roster sizes. They have the option to potentially increase scholarships. They have the option to increase financial aid. They have the option to do many of those things. The reality and problem is that a lot of these institutions are not going to have the budgets and the funds and the ability to do that, which I'm going to get into in a moment. But that is what's happening right now. So people are wondering, okay, is that going to affect my recruiting? How's that going to work? That's something we're going to talk about in a minute. So I'm setting you up with a context right here. Let me just go into the next one. So the next part is the budgets. And so there was a release here by the NCAA, and I printed out a few things here. I'll just throw it up even like right there. I know you guys can't see it. I'm going to send you guys this information afterwards. But this is what they've said, and I want to read it because it's got the actual numbers in there, okay? So revenue is allocated to certain sports based on basketball. The March Madness that everybody knows about basketball brings in the most money for the NCAA. And the NCAA uses that revenue to distribute it amongst all the different divisions in NCAA, that are part of that organization, all the NCAA schools. So by doing so, then they are helping these schools with their budgets. Now, this is what happened. In Division III, they said that they're going to experience a $7.6 million deficit in 2019 and 2020. So they normally get much, much, much more money. And right now they've already allocated $10.7 million. So they're going to go into a huge deficit because they've already paid for certain things that are happening, not taking into account that this is, this coronavirus was going to hit us as badly as it did. And there was things that was done prior to this, even before. And so they're dependent on that money. In Division II, universities are expected to receive in total $30 million less. So what does this really mean? Well, look, the NCAA and college sports is a business. And this is the way everything runs. Every sport outside of the ones that generate revenue, mainly basketball and football, are the ones that generate the revenue. They're funding all the other non-revenue generating sports. And so if the money isn't there from the biggest moneymaker in the TV rights, then what's going to happen to the eligibility, right? And so when we look at that, we start thinking, okay, how are these schools going to have enough money now to not only bring back their seniors or sophomores or granting that extra year of eligibility and then carrying on the next set of people and increasing possible roster sizes, funding, scholarships. And a reality is, when I talk to college coaches, the insider information is that a lot of these universities will not have the funds. So they will not be able to do anything more. So what's going to end up happening? That's what we really need to figure out. And so the athletic directors are going to do what's best for their universities, okay? They're going to end up saying, okay, we have X number of dollars. Where do we want to allocate these funds? Do we want to allocate them to softball? Do we want to allocate them to tennis? Do we want to allocate it to golf? Do we want to allocate it to field hockey, track and field, whatever it may be? They get to ultimately decide where those funds are going to be allocated. But if they have less funds than they normally do, then they're even going to be stuck on just doing what they normally do and funding their own teams that are currently with them. So what I think is going to end up happening is the following. What's going to end up happening is there will be a group of seniors that are going to choose not to come back. And that's going to be a good situation for everybody, because they're going to go on and say, look, I played spring. What am I going to do? I'm going to pay a semester in school. Maybe there's not enough funding. I'm not going to come back. There's going to be a portion of people that, as the 2020 recruits and 2021s and 2022s come in, that coaches might decide those are the players they want to take and not grant those other players from freshmen right now onward that extra year of eligibility. They might just say to their players, look, I have new kids coming in that I think are a better fit, or I want to give them the opportunity, and so you're just going to get your 3 years. I think it's going to be very rare. The only schools that are going to be able to either maximize that opportunity, get bigger roster sizes, have more money available, are those massive schools, the University of Florida's, the Ohio States, the Texas's, the schools that are really, really well funded, have major sports programs that may be willing to fund the non-revenue sports a little more. And that'll come down to the athletic director and the president and everybody involved and how important they feel that sport is, how important it is for them to win. Those are all things that are going to come into play for these programs. So, one thing that could happen is the competition may start to grow, or it will start to grow, because people will eventually be fighting for less spots available. The other thing that might happen is you might not end up going to the same program that you normally go to because of that. Schools will be probably looking towards, in most sports, there are some where full scholarships are available, but if we look at men's especially, and the smaller sports, the non-revenue ones, you're having to pay something. So they're going to be looking towards people who possibly can pay more money, that have the finances, because they don't have to allocate so many dollars, and that way they can increase the roster sizes or best build the most competitive teams. That could be an opportunity for people who have the funds, like have the money to pay for college, versus people who are looking for big scholarships. And they, that could be an issue. Every school is going to look at it case by case, year by year. I have here, like I mentioned, one thing I think is very important to say is the NCAA has given, the schools the ability. That's the main word right here. They've given them the ability to get funding to make these decisions. And so, as much as we like to think it's an NCAA issue, all the NCAA is doing is saying, look, we'll grant you extra year of eligibility. We'll open up and create waivers for extra scholarships and so on. But it's not the NCAA that's funding these universities. It's the universities that's funding themselves. So at the end, they're still going to make the decision, and it's going to end up becoming a case by case, school by school, year by year, maybe even semester by semester. So that's important. The other thing that's really important is what's happening currently with the players. So there are sports that offer 4-year scholarships. They'll give you a 4-year contract, but most of those contracts will not include a 5th year. So in this scenario, we're looking at schools that have been granted that extra year of eligibility to their player, which gives them their 5th-year aid. But if in their contract it doesn't say that they're going to get their scholarship amount for the 5th year, then again, that person could not be granted that opportunity. That allows someone else to come in. But if it is written, then they're going to have to give it to that person because those contracts are legal and binding. There's also a number of schools that just go year by year. So you may see a lot of these players coming in and out. I think it's going to create possibly some more transfers. It's going to create an opportunity where some of these coaches are going to be able to bring in a freshman and have them play a year. And if they don't perform, have the opportunity maybe to send them somewhere else or just tell them, like, we're not going to give you the same scholarship. Now, that's generally frowned upon. That's not the way normal institutions or most institutions will go at it, because you're not going to bring, unless the person's actually violated by like breaking the NCAA rules, going out drinking, partying, doing things that are actual fractions. You know, it's very difficult for schools to allow coaches to just take away a scholarship because they found someone better or they don't like how they're playing, especially in non-revenue sports because there's less on the line. But I think now, because the pressure is going to be on and the options to do that, schools may act differently. Division III, I want to talk for a moment about the divisions. So what I explained to you, Division I and Division II, they've come out with these extensions. Everyone's come out with the extensions. They've come out with their rules about the communication, how that all works, because Division I and II offer scholarships. So everything that I'm talking about in regards to scholarships and all that stuff has to do with Division I and II. Division III doesn't offer athletic scholarships. So I think that they'll hardly be impacted, along with Ivy League schools. So Ivy League schools are Division I, but they don't offer athletic scholarships, and they also don't allow grad students to play. So if somebody, let's say, is on their team currently and they have gotten that extra year granted, they cannot do more than their undergrad degree. They cannot play as a grad student, while other universities can allow you to be a grad student and play. Like, that's what I was doing. I wasn't medically cleared, so I was planning to come back and do my grad school and play my final year of eligibility during my 5th year because I didn't play my senior year. So I don't think that the D3 schools are going to be affected so much by this because of the athletic scholarships. And there's very little academic scholarships, especially at the top tier, because they're so hard to get in the Division III side. And they all want to keep it as amateur as possible. Another thing to consider that's going to happen is if, God forbid, this lockdown and our ability to get back to normal life and go to events and have sports be part of our life is not going to be happening in any time in the near future, and it goes further into the summer and maybe even into the fall, then not having football in 2020 here, which also is the revenue generator, is going to further impact and create less money and a bigger problem for a lot of these universities. And I think that at that point, 2021 and 2022 grads will be severely affected by what's available and the amount of scholarships that are there. And so there are a number of things, and I'm touching on some of these points. I'll give you guys another example is there are schools that are going test optional right now. So because you cannot take the SAT or ACT test, there are some schools that are saying, look, we're going to go test optional. And because you don't have it done, like, we'll still admit you. And they're even talking about test optional for 2021 grads, because what some universities are going to look to do is they're going to look to try to get more students in. So here's an actual light, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel is you may find out that there are schools out there that are going to be willing to lower the standard to get more kids in, because with all the problems and the loss of revenue and the money that they're not receiving, and the competition increase and the amount of maybe keeping some players on side, they might be saying, look, let's take a kid who has a 28 ACT instead of a 30, which is our standard and our minimum requirement to get in. And we can bring them in, and we can say, look, make it test optional, and then their grades are good enough, they can come in. Because I think there's going to be a financial crisis for a lot of universities, just like it is for businesses. They are a business. They need to stay open. They need to sell a certain amount of seats every year, a certain amount of dorm beds, a certain amount of people need to come to school every single year. There are schools that don't have that problem. The Harvards of the world are not going to face those issues because people are going to be still lining up at their doorstep. But other schools that are not able to fill up as it is are going to really have to bend over backwards. And that could be an opening for people. So you could maybe get into a school that you normally can't get into, but you can play at that school. And the coach says, look, you'd be a great asset for my team. You can play for me, but you know what? Normally our academic criteria is pretty high. You don't need it. But because of this situation, we've been able to bend the rules, or we've been able to lower the standard, and now you get an opportunity. So that could be an advantage for people. As I mentioned earlier, another big advantage is going to be the full pay. We call it full pay. Full pay means people who are willing to pay the full amount to go to university. I think that's going to be very, very, very attractive to colleges, because if a coach can walk up to their athletic director and their administration and say, look, I've got a kid who's going to come play, on my team, good player, and they're willing to pay, I now have more money left over to get another good player, potentially even a better player that normally wouldn't come because I don't have enough scholarship money. But now I can offer that kid a full ride or a very, very big scholarship. And now I can get a stud player that normally goes somewhere else because I don't have those funds. I think that a lot of universities are really going to lean towards those full payers and say, look, they're going to help those people out because there's going to be less of them. So really, what are coaches saying and thinking about this whole thing? I think that's on everybody's mind. What do I do? How does it work? Coaches are saying different things, really, because everybody's in their own unique situation. Some of them are saying recruiting as usual. Some of them are saying I'm waiting to see what happens. Some of them are saying I'll only talk to top prospects because I want to keep them in my corner. But I really don't have much to say to these kids because I don't know what's going on. So I don't really want to talk because I don't want to say anything or do anything wrong. My university is maybe telling me to keep quiet. And then you have the opposite. You have universities that are telling you, hey, go ahead, talk to everybody. You need to be actively recruiting. You need to build your database of leads and stuff, because once this is over, we're going to need players, and we're going to need to fill up the roster and the team. You got coaches that are closing out their season still, believe it or not. I mean, there's so much paperwork. There was coaches in the spring season that were like, hey, look, we were on spring break. I know coaches that called me up and were like, hey, I just got here for spring break. I just played my first match. I just played my first game, and we're on a flight back home. So they now have to take care of canceling things, reporting, receipts, talking to administration. And so they're consumed with that. There's coaches, believe it or not, that are, sadly dealing with this coronavirus. There may be coaches that are infected. There are coaches whose family members are infected. There's coaches who have other businesses and other responsibilities to look after. I know some coaches that, quite frankly, have 4 or 5 kids that, they don't know what to do with them, and they're unable to really do their job at the full extent. So, they're not available the way they normally are. But what's coming out of this is that is the same message I always give. Regardless of coronavirus or not, coaches are always going to be in different cycles. They're going to be in different recruiting cycles, different phases, different opportunities. You need to still be going after those coaches. Okay, that's still very, very important. So, what should you be doing now? What should you do during this whole, coronavirus quarantine? What do you do with your development? What do you do with your recruiting? So here's my message to you guys: a slowdown in, or a lockdown is it's not a time to just complain. It's a time to be proactive. It's a time to look at the glass half full. I posted a video the other day trying to make people understand we have to keep moving. We have to be positive. We have to be in a position where if tomorrow this coronavirus is over, the lockdown is over, and we're back to normal life, are you prepared? So what are you going to do? You got to do test prep. I know that they've canceled the May one. June for SATs, ACTs is still on as of now. That, in my opinion, will likely not happen as well, but let's see. Let's not jump to conclusions, but you have to be prepared for that test. You have to also be prepared if they decide to do some in the summer, if you decide to do some in the fall, whenever it is. You also have to be doing your research on colleges. Regardless of coach interaction, you need to do that. You need to keep your grades up. I know a lot of you, everyone here is on online school. That must be super tough. But you need to continue doing well in the classroom and staying as focused as possible. Okay. I don't think this is a time to panic. I don't think this is a time to get overly stressed out. I think everybody just needs to take it step by step, day by day. And I think that you need to have a plan for when you're ready to go back. And so that's tournaments, summer leagues, exposure events. You need to be ready to jump on those opportunities. Communicate with those people that are running them. Like, for example, I'm running ours this summer. Like, I still haven't canceled my end of June and July camp, exposure tennis camps at University of Pennsylvania, because we haven't got the word from the university that they're shut down. They're telling us, as of right now, we're open. So we have to stay open. We have to collect those registrations, because if they do open up, we got to be ready to go. The coaches are ready to go. With all of that said about the coaches, I need to let you guys know that majority of coaches are recruiting heavily. They are communicating, and they are doing it all online, right? So platforms like IMRecruitable, like ours, we've had spikes of traffic, crazy spikes of traffic from college coaches over the last month, because their only option is to go online. They're hitting us up too. What are the players? Who are the new players? We send notifications out. We try to give everybody as maximum exposure on those opportunities. That's where they're spending their time. It's like virtual recruiting right now. That's what it is, a virtual recruiting process. And thousands of people are joining this platform to do that. The same way we're doing webinars, and the stock prices and the user base of WebEx and Zoom and all these online webinar companies are increasing. Amazon, for example, as well. All these things are increasing because there's a need for it. So right now there's a massive need. There's always a need for the online recruiting. Right now there's a massive need for that, because we have no other option and place to go. So, my team and I have been ramping that up and making sure that everybody's getting connected, because we know that that's also our duty to help you guys, because where else are you going to go? We got to help those coaches. They rely on us to do that, and it's a platform for them to use. So it's magnified right now. People have limited budgets too, even if things open up sooner than later. Not every college coach is going to be able to travel. One of the things that I love about like the exposure camps, and there are exposure camps where college coaches teach the camps in different sports, is that at least they get paid for that. So if we open those up and get paid for that, they won't have to use recruiting budgets, and so they'll be able to show up. But when you look at showcases and combines and ID camps and those things, then those are based on coaches' budgets. And with these potential budget cuts and limited budgets that they already have, who knows if they're going to be able to go to all the events that they normally go to, let alone any of them. So that's going to be an issue as well. And the ADs are going to really decide that, universities. So, that's my overview here. That's my context I want to give you guys. I want to open it to questions. I know it's a lot of information to take in. I don't want to overload you guys, which is why I don't want to go into too many details. I want to answer these questions, so I'm going to get to it right now. If you do have questions that you just thought of while I was speaking, please text those over to my team, and they're gonna message me here so I can continue to answer some. Also, I just got a text here that okay, there's one thing. So apparently the NLI is good to go for April 16th. still signing the national letter of intent. So no visits until May 31st as we know it. But my advice kind of here is that as these updates continue to come in, like just follow it. You don't need to worry about anything past the due date, the dates that they've set. Don't speculate. Don't spend too much time pondering and thinking what will happen. You just got to go with it. Like they may change things. They may say, okay, May 31st, but as things open up, they may allow something to happen sooner. I don't think so, but we'll see. And if not, they'll keep extending it. So let's get over to some questions here. I'm going to start here. I got one question here. We're working on staying on our critical route to make 100% sure that Cassie is able to make the Arkansas Razorbacks varsity team by fall 2023. So we've got a freshman here. What would be the most important considerations to take into account? Maybe top 3 considerations. So not all these questions I think are strictly coronavirus, and that's perfectly fine with me, and I'm going to answer them because I think this is a great time just to talk recruiting too. So top 3 things, simple. Number 1, whatever sport you're playing, understand what level those athletes are at. And you need to make sure that you're mapping your behavior to be consistent with the trajectory that those athletes are hitting. And realize that if you're looking at a school like the Razorbacks, for example, any D1 school, that less than 1% of athletes get full rides. Less than such a small percentage play Division 1 is difficult. And so set your goals, try to get there, but the best way to do it is to map it out and start getting off checkpoints. Have I reached this level? Have I reached this level? What level is searching? The second thing is the academics. You must just set yourself up to get the best grades, best test scores, best classes possible. Because if it comes down to it, you need to make sure you can get into every school academic. And there are a lot of schools that have really rigorous academic standards. And if you're just targeting a school, that's difficult because you may not get there. That's the other sort of kicker. I'm going to throw that in there right now. If you're targeting one school, that's okay to have that dream, but also realize that what if you don't get that spot? Maybe they give it to somebody else, no matter if you're really good. Maybe you don't get to that level. Maybe they don't have an opening that year. They're looking to replace, whatever it is, a quarterback or a guard or a number 1 player for a singles lineup. And you're not replacing a 5 or 6, and that's the level you get to. The third thing is that you just got to have a great attitude and a great work ethic and be a team player. So that's super important. So if you do come down to the point where you reach the level, you have the grades to get in, because remember, it's not just about the sport. It's college sports, right? College comes first. You have to meet those academic standards. And then if you're an amazing team player, you're a great person, you're a good leader, that coach will love to have you on their team. That's your competitive edge over all the other people who have the grades that you do and have the level ability you do. So great question. Next one. Since the NCAA has granted eligibility to all spring sport players, in tennis, for example, is a spring sport, the key takeaway is that current college freshmen will stay freshmen. Tennis playing eligibility wise next academic year. How will this affect newcoming freshman athletes? So this is what I addressed, but I'm going to address it again, is the option to extend eligibility, to grant those athletes, freshmen onwards, is available, but not all the universities and coaches have to grant that for the players. So it's going to affect schools case by case. If they end up granting those years of eligibility, there will be less roster spots available unless the schools open up more roster spots, which, as I mentioned with the budgets, will be less likely. So it is going to be very case by case, and those are the potential problems that could come out of this. So the next one is, how will this affect the timeline and process for D3 recruiting? Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I think this has a less effect to D3 than it does for any of the other divisions. And that's because, like I said, the scholarships aren't into play. The timelines could be affected, just like everybody else. Like, for example, we can't go for visit tour now. Will things get pushed back further? It all depends how long this lockdown lasts. So universities are going to continue to adjust and create different timelines. But I'd like to think that once we get back to normal by summer, fingers crossed, maybe before June, July, that we can go back to regular timelines. But currently for the seniors that are right now still not recruited, then of course your timelines in your process is going to be affected. It already is being affected, and it will continue to be affected. Okay, here's the next question. With the potential lack of summer tournaments, how will coaches evaluate 2021 prospects? So look, as I mentioned, coaches are online. It's going to affect their opportunity to recruit tremendously. I think there's going to be a lot of coaches that might even be reserved and not want to just go out there and start recruiting, like going to every event, because they're going to want to protect themselves. Even after this is over, I think people are going to be cautious. This is a serious virus. We're getting new studies every day. So the ability for these coaches to be able to access information online is critical. So I asked everybody to create an IMRecruitable free profile. This is just like being on LinkedIn. This is just like being on Facebook and Instagram and all these places where you can put information about yourself. Filling out your profile and putting in as much information, videos, training, information about yourself, any scores you have, test scores. I've built that platform so it's an easy resume. And you need to put your information there. If you do, then you're not going to have as big of a problem not being able to access these events and tournaments and stuff, as far as it goes to exposure to college coaches and getting your name out there, okay? And how they're going to actually evaluate the prospects. There's a number of coaches that I've come across over the last years that budgets keep getting cut, because that is a problem, that their athletic directors are just telling them, recruit from the desk. So where are they going? They're just sitting on their computer and they're going to these third-party applications and they're finding athletes. If you are a junior and just turned 17, what are your thoughts on delayed entry into college by a year, since current college players are given one extra year of eligibility? Okay, so this is a great question. Somebody's saying, like, look, should I just defer a year and not be in this potential situation where players are going to, there's not going to be enough roster spots, or there's not going to be enough money, and there's not going to be maybe a position for me? My answer, unfortunately, is the same as I always give to everybody, which is you need to go through the recruiting process as if you're going your grad year. If you're debating whether you want to take a year off and you want to go the year after, then you just need to go to every single coach that you're talking to that's interested in you. You need to say to them, look, is there an opportunity for me now? And what would the opportunity for me look like a year from now? And you put that down. You put that pen to paper. You have to put it pen to paper on a sheet. You need to put all the schools and all the information that the coaches have given you. And then you make the right decision. You evaluate. So if coaches say, look, if you came in 2021 instead of 2020, you take that gap year, like, this is what I can do for you. This is what I can do for you now. And you'll be able to, they'll give you those answers. And you might have to, they may not have all the answers either. So that could be situations, but at least you'll get all your research done and you'll be able to understand how much of a risk is it and if it makes sense for me. So good question. But the only way to do that is to really just get in and talk to every single coach and try to get as much info as possible. So this is a question from a 2020. Since we're running out of time, we don't have a chance to visit schools, and especially if things get improved by June, what do you think the chances are? What do we need to do with our recruiting? That's, I think, what they're trying to say here is, look, if you're at 2020, this is just what it is. Unfortunately, there are things we can control and things that we cannot control. And we cannot control the situation. It sucks that if you had a recruiting trip plan and you were going to go visit a school and make a decision, and now you can't go to that school or those set of schools, it's going to be significantly harder for you to make a decision. At the end of the day, you have to make a decision. And so what do? You got to talk to the coach. You got to go online, do your research. You got to take a virtual tour. You got to try to talk to players on the team. You got to try to get as much information as possible from all these players, coaches, information from others who know anything about the university. Throw a message on Instagram. Say, hey, anybody know about this school? Throw a message on Facebook, wherever, any outlet, Twitter. Try to get as much information as possible to try to make your best decision. I don't think that you're going to have the opportunity to wait, let alone the opportunity to go on these visits. But again, talk to the schools, talk to the coaches, see what their schools are saying, see what they're advising you to do. Of course, every coach is going to want you to commit. Every school is going to want you to commit right away. But at the end of the day, you might not have the chance. You might just have to do it. And that is just the reality of it. And it's sad, and I'm the biggest believer. My entire company is, my team. I've told them that nobody should be going and making commitments unless, they are visiting schools and comparing it. You've got to see it for your own eyes. But this is a very unique situation. Okay, someone's asking me, can you please address how prospects might feel out how well-funded D1 programs are in regards to the loss of March Madness? So again, this is what we talked about earlier. A lot of schools are going to lose funding that they normally receive. How funded are some of these D1 programs? You're just going to have to go straight up to the coaches. Hey, coach, did you receive funds? Do you have funds to support me? This is what I'm looking to get out of it. Or what's your situation? I know some coaches that have called me and told me that they're not getting any funding. Some schools have made those decisions for certain sports. Some schools have not. Some schools aren't even allowed to release that. A lot of these coaches aren't allowed to release that information yet. But as they do and understand it, that's the only way you're going to figure it out. So will there be a deadline for the current seniors that are in college right now that get that extra year of eligibility for them to decide whether they return or not? Right now, that's another fantastic question. Right now, there is no timeline. Schools are like, this was just released recently. Schools are still trying to figure out what they're going to do, what their budgets look like, what policies they're going to put in. As I said, every school has the option to decide what they want to do. And then every coach ultimately will have to decide if they want to offer that to seniors or not. And then I'm sure there will be some sort of deadline. There has to be, because they're going to want to know what incoming freshmen they can bring in. But at the same time, schools in those situations, they're probably already ready for 2020 recruits. So they're going to just be looking at what they can do with 2021. So it may not be as quick as you want it to be, but it'll probably be a deadline at some point. I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. Schools provide, okay. Here's one. My daughter plays tennis, and before all of this, her UTR was a 7. So this is a rating system for all those non-tennis players, and had a couple ITF tournaments lined up, but of course they all got canceled. Absolutely. Now her UTR has dropped considerably to a 5. She's a junior. How will coaches adapt to these drops? Look, everybody is in the same situation. Your rankings, ratings, everything's going to drop because you're not playing. You're going to be rusty. Everything's going to be an issue. College coaches understand what's going on. They know how to recruit. They know how to, a lot of them know how to scout as well. And they're recruiting, and they understand what's happening. So they're going to take that all into consideration. I'm sure that all players are fighting, the same battle where things are dropping. They're not going to be at the same standards. So they're going to take that into consideration. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't stress about it. I would just, coaches do their research. They know what's going on. They know exactly how this is going to play out. They know At the same time, it doesn't hurt you from letting them know, but don't use it as an excuse because it's not an excuse. It's not necessary. It's just the situation. Okay, I'm going to go to couple more here. Okay. Do you think there's a chance that high school juniors will be actively recruited later into their senior year if national tournaments don't take place and provide an exposure isn't held? Perhaps with the adjustments to college application dates or waiving of the eligibility start date and the 6-month rule that's in place. Okay, so this is a loaded question. Let me answer this like this in parts. If there's no national events and there isn't opportunities for people to see them live, I highly doubt that the colleges are going to be granted the coaches that, hey, we're going to extend, the recruiting till later. Yes, some coaches might decide if they can to extend their recruiting, but if there are deadlines in place, I don't think those deadlines will necessarily be extended. They may, but I don't think so. And in that regard, the coaches are just going to have to recruit online. But if they are extended, of course, that gives those coaches that opportunity. Now, if coaches have no rush, which in certain schools and situations, they don't have a rush, so they may wait and just be like, hey, look, I'm going to wait till I've talked to this person, I've been online, I've been communicating with them, I'm going to wait to see them in a game, and then I'll make a decision because I can. They'll do that. But it's not going to be for everyone. College application dates, I don't think they're going to change because honestly, that doesn't have any college application dates. Usually don't have anything to do with the athletes. Those are just for every student, and I don't think that those institutions are going to do that because education, academics is first for them, so they're not going to bend the rules for everyone. There may be situations where schools will give leeway to athletes. That is possible, but I don't think it's going to be a big thing. Again, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. The waiver of the eligibility, this is the last piece of the thing. So in Division I, athletes, if they take a gap year, they have 6 months to continue competition from the date of their high school graduation. After the 6 months, they can either go to school in the spring or they can wait a year, but they cannot play any competition, which if you're not playing competition, it gets difficult if you haven't been recruited already prior to that. So do you think that they'll be waiving those start dates? That's a possibility. Yeah, anything could be possible there. Just depends on how this all plays out. Okay, here's another question. My daughter's a 2021 grad. Has had great success using your IMRecruitable platform. Thank you very much. Do you think more and more coaches will be using the platform rather than traveling to events? Okay, so this is another similar question. Yes, absolutely. They already are. It's insane the amount of coaches that are online. We've had to up our server space like crazy and enhance some of our features because of the amount of traffic that we're getting and the amount of activity, as this person is saying. So absolutely. That's your best bet right now. Let me see here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I've answered quite a few questions. Look, if you guys have more questions, I'm sure you guys are going to think of questions as this, as you process this information, as you start to maybe listen to the replay when I send it to you guys and stuff like that, or you do more research on your own, and I give you guys some resources to go to. Feel free to hit us up, text us on our text platform. I'm going to try to do as many Facebook, Instagram lives, get on social media channels as much as possible so I can answer those. Like I think I might end up doing a follow-up at some point with my team if there's a lot of questions here and just doing like a questions show and answering them for you guys live there, which will be pretty cool. And then you can watch it at your convenience. So I want to leave you guys with a final message, my final thoughts. And that is, we are in a place, in a situation that we've never, ever experienced in our life. I had the pleasure of speaking to Coach Dick Gould yesterday, where we did a Facebook Live. He was the men's tennis coach at Stanford University for 38 years, won 17 NCAA titles. Coach Johnny McEnroe and his brother and the Bryan brothers and a lot of famous tennis players. And he is, I believe, 80 years old now, and he has never seen anything like this. He didn't have a lot of answers to the questions that people had. We're all going through this and experiencing new things, so be very open, understand, and be patient. At the same time, we have to stay very positive. We have to have a positive outlook, a positive mindset. Because we can't control certain things, we need to be very positive. We need to make sure that we are staying in good shape. Maybe we're watching a film, like doing everything, do anything and everything that can keep you active. And don't stress out about it. Don't, parents, if you're like listening, don't stress your kids out. Like they're going through a lot right now. They're doing online school. They're probably worried themselves about what's happening with their future. We're in a lockdown. We can't see anybody. We're isolated. This is going to play games with people. And so positivity is the key. And it's very important for us to stay proactive and just not stress. Again, like it is, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We'll end up getting back to normal soon. Just prepare yourself as best you can. If you're well prepared, then you're going to feel good about things. You're going to be excited. You're going to be confident. And everything's still evolving. So let everything evolve. We don't know the answers. I'm giving you my point of view. I'm giving you some insider info, and I'll continue to do that. But really, this is a great lesson, I believe. If I'm going to look at the glass half full rather than half empty, then I'm going to say this is an amazing lesson for all of us. This is a lesson that prepares us for life. For me, being a student athlete was more than just playing my sport. It was developing the life skills and everything that I experienced and the network I built and learned that was priceless. And what it did was set me up for life. So this is another great lesson. This is another hurdle that we're going. It's going to prepare us. Be the best person, help people. The people who do the best, who end up preparing themselves and really taking this seriously will have the most opportunities. At the same time, you got to learn how to pivot. And we do this every day in business and in life, right? Like businesses are shut down. Everybody's struggling to some degree. And so now this is the opportunity for parents to help your children pick up and pivot and figure things out. And we're going to be okay. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I really, really appreciate everybody following. If you haven't followed us already, please make sure that you follow me, Tarek Merchant 17 at Tarek Merchant 17. I'm throwing out content there. We're throwing out content on IMRecruitable. If you're a tennis player, please check out Collegiate Exposure Camps. That's our handle online as well as our website. If you have not created your recruiting profile, please go on and create your free recruiting profile. I promise you it's going to do a lot for you now and in the future. For everyone who is already a member, please make sure you fill out as much information as possible and engage with as many coaches, also understand their situation. So I wish you guys all nothing but health, and please be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.